eager for him to tell you some of his backstory, because he's actually been involved in the FI community since 2012. So he goes back a long time, which is kind of cool. And also his corporate job before he got into all this FI stuff is quite interesting. I heard things about R&D and radar and warfare, so it sounds really fascinating. MIT got thrown in there, so I'll let him explain all of that. But one of the really cool things he's going to be talking to us all about, which I think is this hits home to all of us, is how to work less, but spend more, right? That's a good topic. I think we'll all enjoy that. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Aubrey Williams.
Thank you so much for being here with me today. I'm talking about something that I think everyone is already doing, or if not, you will be, which is adjusting. And I'm going to convince you, that's my intention, that you're already going to adjust, so you might as well plan for it. And that probably means you're working too long and you're going to spend too little. All right. That's your plan, 4% safe withdrawal rate. You're going to get on your bike and ride out into the rainbow finish line. That isn't what happens. There's a rock slide and a bomb and a canoe and a rain cloud, and you make it. You make it. Because look what you've done to be here. You've done so many amazing things. You're going to keep doing. But let's address some myths and truths in the FI community. So you can call them out, myth or truth. If you're on a road trip, you look at all the speed limits, find the lowest one, set your cruise control to that, and go. Myth. All right. When the market corrects, 5 people don't adjust. Myth. All right. If your FI number assumes fixed spending, you're probably working too long and spending too little. True. I don't even need to wait for your answer. The unknown can be scarier than a bad situation that's familiar. True. That's me. All right, how about accumulation is simple? I even heard that one.
True.
False. Myth. Have you looked at us lately? Backdoor Roth, mega backdoor Roth, 457 from that school district. You quit intentionally so that you can draw from it to put into the 457 from the next school district. Right? So accumulation can be complex or complicated, but it's familiar. We have tons of examples, blogs and YouTube videos and podcasts. You've seen 1,000 variations of it, and you've done it and you've tried it, so it's familiar. But decumulation, we don't have as many stories there. We're starting to. And so even things that are complex, once you've seen a couple hundred or a couple thousand of them, they're not scary anymore. And once you've done it, it's definitely not scary. All right. Modeling cash flow over decades is complex. True. But if you have good tools, it doesn't have to be hard. And I think we saw that yesterday doing some of the complex cash flow modeling over decades using software tools like Projection Lab, Prolana. So it doesn't have to be hard, even if it's complex. All right, and I think it was on here. This is Cody Garrett's quote. The 4% rule was not intended to be a drawdown strategy. True. Right. It's an academic answer to an academic question. Very important. This is my favorite. The average FI community member runs circles around the average financial advisor. True. And there's nothing that the FI community can't do. True. Absolutely true. All right, this is the 4% rule. Using the website Engaging Data, if you aren't familiar with it, I suggest you use it. The 4% rule asks if you have a 50-50 portfolio, 50% stocks, 50% bonds, which were medium-term securities, medium-term treasuries, and you want it to last 30 years, by using historical analysis, what is the maximum that you can withdraw without running out of money? Right? And he studied 1926 30-year periods in cohorts starting from 1926 to 1976, and the answer was 4%. It might interest you that it wasn't the Great Depression that set that number, it was 1966, stagflation. So that's interesting. And the other interesting thing is, even going to 4.25%, meant that you didn't make it to 30 years. So that percentage is very sensitive. So hear that in a different way. Small adjustments can make a big difference. Okay. Now this is the same 4% rule. You start here at $1 million, and then stuff happens. And if you're using the 4% rule, you're planning for that, right there. But you're probably gonna get something other than that, and that's the median value. That doesn't mean you're guaranteed 1.1 million. But say you're a couple of years down the road, 5, 6, 7 years, and your portfolio is where that green arrow is. 1.7, 1.8 million. You're gonna keep spending your 40K increase with inflation? Or are you gonna adjust a little, right? And if you're down here and your $1 million portfolio has dropped to 700K, 600K, you're gonna keep spending 40% adjusted for inflation, right? You're gonna adjust. So if you already know you're gonna adjust, plan to adjust. I'm gonna show you a systematic way to use historical analysis, the very technique that we use to come up with the 4% rule, to have a systematic way and know at what portfolio value you will adjust by how much when it goes low and when it goes high. And what that means is you can reach FI soon, and when you are in FI, you can spend more. So one of my favorite people, maybe many of you share this, is Charlie Munger. He was Warren Buffett's business partner. He collected mental models and he published them in Poor Charlie's Almanac. And one of my favorites of his favorites is invert, always invert. So as a community, we are addicted to 100% chance of success. Invert. What is 100% chance of success?
0.
100% chance of underspending. As in ending up with a huge pile of money that you didn't spend that's going to the hogs. Heirs, organizations, or the government. And that's from Kevin Sebastian. Thank you. So we're very familiar with the fear of underspending. We're afraid of running out of money, about having chronic anxiety about money, about not being able to afford health care, or heat and air conditioning, or food, or shelter. And that's real. I don't want that to happen. That's why we're here, that's why we're planning, saving, preparing, all of those things, that's good. But we don't think so much about the risk of underspending. Working too long, being disempowered at work, feeling stuck. And I experienced this so intensely that I had to take a 5-month medical leave of absence due to depression, anxiety, and insomnia. And it didn't help. And so my health was harmed, my mental health, my physical health, my relationships with parents, with my partner, with my kids. This is real. This isn't, oh, just get over it. And had I had this information, I wouldn't have been there. I would have been here sooner. So you might be unable to fly to be with your dying relative. Maybe instead of just the last couple of days, it could have been the last couple of weeks. Or you're too busy to create something. Have you ever noticed to actually create something takes time and space and quiet? And that might be a business, a friendship, a relationship, a piece of art, write a song. It doesn't happen when you're working 50 to 70 hours a week, like I was. So the way I like to put it, we're too busy reaching FI to be FI. So let's do something about it. So this is what a guardrails approach based on historical analysis looks like. There's your starting portfolio. Right here, it says current, and then you have a lower guardrail and an upper guardrail. The lower guardrail tells you at what portfolio value, were it to drop to that, you would have to make an adjustment. And the value over on the right tells you how much you would need to adjust. So what we're looking at here is a 4.39% withdrawal rate. And if our portfolio drops 46% from $1 million down to 524K, then and only then do we adjust our withdrawals down by $190 per month, 5%. And if our portfolio grows to 1.09 million, then we adjust upwards by $450 a month. And that's a 12% increase. So the table down here shows how it compares to a fixed withdrawal rate. Net of taxes, we get a 6.3% benefit. Now, how do you do it? It's magic. Aubrey says, no, you can do this. And the tool that I prefer to do this is FireCal. I did everything in this presentation, all of these calculations with FireCal. It's totally free. It's a website, and I have an instruction sheet where I have screenshots and instructions, as well as this exact spreadsheet that you see at the top and on the next page, so you can do it yourself. So here's how it works. You start with a 90% chance of success, something other than 100%. That's your starting point. That means you can take out a little more, because 90% chance of success is less than 100. You take out a little more. So in this example, we're at 4.5% withdrawal rate, 45K a year, $37.50 a month. Then we choose our lower guard. We're going to say 75% chance of success. With the same 45K per year withdrawal, we figure out what portfolio value is needed to come up with a 75% chance of success. Right? And that's 901K. So when your $1 million portfolio drops to 901K, that's your lower guardrail. Next, we figure out what sort of adjustment you need to make, $357 a month. And then you do the same for the upper guard. So you can use FireCal. This is Big Earn's Safe Withdrawal Rate Toolbox. You can use that. You can use projection line. FireCal works great. I actually preferred it for this. And so this is all that same information put into a spreadsheet. There's a link right below it, so you have access to it. It has instructions on how to go through this with screenshots of FireCal. You can do this monthly, you can do it quarterly, see where your portfolio is, see what adjustments you might need to make, and go from there. Once you get used to it, it's 5 or 10 minutes. Now, you might ask, why doesn't the financial advisor community do this? To do it this way, even though it takes about 5 to 10 minutes, if you're serving 50, 70, 100 clients, that's a lot. And just recently, there's started to be software that automates this in just the last couple of years. So this has been known academically for more than 10 years, but it's just now coming into practice. But it's totally practical for you as an individual to do this for yourself. And I also wanted to clarify, this is much more than just say, be flexible, which isn't wrong, but this is a systematic approach where you know the exact value of your low guardrail, the exact value of the adjustment that you're going to make. And we can look at how that performed in history through the Great Depression, through stagflation, through the dot-com bubble bursting, and through the Great Financial Crisis. So this is the Great Depression, and the red lines that you see, this is just zoomed in the same thing. Those are adjustments downward in the worst part of the Great Depression in 1932. And it makes sense. Going through that, you would adjust. There's a 25% reduction. But within 5 years, with increases upward, you were back at the spending level that you were before the Great Depression. And then see this white area under the curve? That's spending above your initial spending level. You were above it much of the time. That's the area under the curve that you get with having an adjustable withdrawal rate. This is stagflation, just one adjustment downward below your initial rate, right at the end of stagflation, 1981. Of course, going through it, you don't know that it's about to be over. So a 10% spending reduction in 1981, and then after that, increase, increase, increase. Dot-com bubble, you cruise right through it. Increase. Great financial crisis, same answer, increase. So with the guardrails in place, you have a plan ahead of time of how you're going to adjust. And when you do this analysis, because you're using historical analysis, you're not testing it against just one of these, you're testing it against all of them. So, plan to adjust. You're going to do it anyway. I know you will. Even if it's, you were going to take the Danube River cruise and you had sprung for the stateroom and the silver all-inclusive package. I've had to talk clients out of canceling that vacation when the market dropped by 10%. And what they did instead was they opted for a slightly less opulent stateroom. Small adjustments make all the difference. You can reach FI sooner and you can spend more once you're fired. Thank you. I have a little bit of bonus material before we get in. So I'll go through it quickly, so remember your question, please. This is an academic study that didn't use just 90% success rate as a starting point, but 50% success rate. And this is, these two lines at the top are the highest spending level, comparing a 50% chance of success and a 95% chance of success. They're almost identical. And this is the lower spending value, because both of these are adjusting portfolios like we've been talking about. 95% and 50% in yellow and green, they're almost identical. So he, in this paper, and the link is there, it's in my references, he even goes as low as 20% chance of success, and it's still viable. So by planning to adjust frequently, you gain incredible power, and the results, they tend to impact legacy value more than they do your spending power during life. That was the conclusion of the paper. Financial advisor doublespeak. So you know I'm a financial advisor. I wasn't always. I was an engineer. I went to University of Maryland and MIT. I have a master's degree in mechanical engineering and an MBA. And I worked in particle physics, infrared detectors, and radar technology. And when I found myself deep in debt after a divorce, it was the financial independence community, ERE, Early Retirement Extreme, and Pete, Mr. Money Mustache, that helped me dig myself out of that hole when financial advisors couldn't or didn't. And I think this is really important. When we started talking about this yesterday, and so I want to give this to you so you don't get hoodwinked like I did. Fee-based, run, do not walk if you ever see fee-based. Because what that means is, anytime you see fee, they're trying to make themselves look good, as in not commission. But fee-based means they charge you a fee and they charge you commission on things like whole life insurance, variable annuities, and loaded mutual funds with either front-end loads, back-end loads, or level loads. So that's what fee-based means. Doesn't sound so harmless. It doesn't sound so bad, right? Fee only, that means they're not charging you commissions. So that's supposed to be a good thing. And I guess it is, if you say, okay, commissions are the bad old days, now we're in the better days, but fee only means assets under management. So the big step forward there was, it wasn't the mutual fund companies paying the advisor or the insurance companies, it was the client paying the advisor by AUM. So that's great. It is an improvement. It's an improvement. Okay, so advice only, that means there's no management of investments involved. And the only thing the person is selling is their advice. They're not selling products, they're not managing money or collecting assets under management, they're just selling advice. Pretty self-explanatory, but that's what it means. You'll see out there flat fee models. Again, it's an improvement. A flat fee can take a couple of forms. It could be a fixed amount, such as $6,000 for a single person, $8,000 for a couple. Sometimes it's a fixed amount, but it's adjusted based on complexity. So if someone has international real estate, international business, a complex partnership, they're going to have a higher fixed fee than someone with a single brokerage account, IRA, and Roth IRA. But it'll be a fixed number, maybe $12K for the first one and $3K for the second. So the problem, or every fee model has its trade-offs, but the problem with that is if you have two individuals, two dentists, similar age, similar practice, similar financials, but one, to get the help that he needs, talks to you about 10 hours a week for the couple of weeks that you're working on the plan. And that's really what that person needs to get the changes done. Whereas the other one, you talk for a total of 3 hours. So that means that the person who's using 3 hours of your time is subsidizing the benefit of the one who talked to you 10 hours. So that bugged me, because I don't want to be the sucker subsidizing the other person. And so another model is the hourly model, where just like an accountant or a lawyer or a therapist or many other professionals, you're selling your time by the hour, and it might be adjusted by complexity. So that first example, more hours, and simpler examples, less. So some of this I had to learn, and it's not out there in a almanac for you to just look up, and all these words sort of sound the same. So that's why I wanted to provide that. This was the spreadsheet that convinced me to fire my financial advisor. And this is 7% returns, 1% AUM, 0.25% expense ratio, and after 10 years, 200K in the hole, after 20, 770K poorer, and after 30 years, $2.1 million poorer. Right? So that was enough, and I really did fire her. It's sort of a straight line with a lot of wiggle to it. So it's coming back to that mean. Monte Carlo doesn't take that into account. In correlations, stocks and bonds, they don't do exactly the same thing, but they are correlated. Perhaps positively, perhaps negatively, but definitely not always zero. And so, again, Monte Carlo doesn't take that into account. That doesn't mean Monte Carlo is useless, but if you have the choice, I suggest using historical analysis. All right, thank you.